Thish Gaming back here with a question I've been getting a lot, which is which profession should I go for TBC based on my class and spec? And I want to start off with a disclaimer. And this disclaimer is leatherworking mandatory? The big elephant in the room. And this is my personal opinion. The answer is yes and no. And basically, it depends on your class, your spec, and the phase, and your raid leader and raid team, that sort of thing. Personally, I think that going leatherworking in phase 1, aka just tier 4 content, isn't necessary. Mechtherodon and Gruul are both bad bosses given the 8-yard drum range, and really, unless you're trying to super duper parse Karazhan, then you aren't going to be missing the haste when it comes to killing the bosses in there. So what do I think? Well, there's some professions that are more important personally than leatherworking early on, and this is especially your crafting professions for gear. And additionally, there's a consideration for enchanters that have AQ enchants. These aren't added to trainers until later in the game. They may be in the game, in which case disregard this, but if they aren't, then having subtlety, threat, agility to gloves, healing power to gloves, shadow power to gloves, these are really valuable and worth keeping a hold on. So let's just start. I'm going to run through every class, what they should be going for, and what professions they should have. So first off, we have balanced druid and leatherworking tailoring. And you're going to see a theme here. I'm always going to have leatherworking plus a profession, and then I'll talk about what alternatives they can have. So tailoring is where you're going to get your best gear. This is Spellfire set and Spell Strike set, and potentially one crafted piece from leatherworking, which you can see on the bottom right, the Windhawk bracers. Otherwise, there's a lot of materials that you need for this. So you can see you need Spellcloth, Primal Mites, Primal Nethers, and Primal Fires. And getting these will take a lot of your time and money. So that's why I'm recommending a secondary profession can be herbalism. If you have flight form, you can do herbalism. You can do alchemy and do more transmutes for money. You can do enchanting for spell power. There's a couple of different options you have. Next up, Feral Druid. Feral Druid is an interesting one. Generally considering people go enchanting and leatherworking as the biz professions, though you can potentially go alchemy or jewel crafting. So alchemy gives you access to the alchemist stone, which increases the effect of healing and mana potions by 40%. If you are power shifting a lot, then this is more juice for your power shifting, and druids are one of the few classes that can actually make use of the stats on alchemist stone. 15 of all primary stats. Not a lot of classes can use that. For enchanting, what you're going for is the +4 stats to rings. So this is 8 to all stats, but you don't lose a trinket slot. So you're going to go this. Leatherworking is still really good. There's some pieces, especially later on, that are very good, and you can use drums while shapeshifted. Resto Druid, tailoring and leatherworking. Tailoring really offers some incomparable sets in tier 4. Now in tier 5, it's much more of a tight competition, but early on, the set bonuses to allow mana regeneration and increase healing by 10% of your intellect, both really good. If you were going to drop one, it would be leatherworking for alchemy, so that you could have more potent potions. Especially if you chug a lot of potions, then alchemy will give you both transmute to make money and a bonus where you can use this potion, this trinket, to get more mana back. For hunter, pretty simple, engineering and leatherworking. Leatherworking is for drums. There's also some good items that you can make, like Belt of Deep Shadow. As far as the engineering gives you access to grenades and super sappers, which are still very good. And especially because Hunter doesn't have the best AoE damage, this allows you to add that little bit of extra oomph to your damage. You can also craft your own bullets and arrows, which is a bonus as far as saving money, provided the profession mats aren't that expensive. For Mage is pretty simple, tailoring and leatherworking. Tailoring is your best set you can get up until tier 5. Tier 5 you will replace this, in which case you can look for a different profession, but at least at this point, these items that I've listed here are really what you're going to be gunning for as far as crafting. Now, there's an exception. If you are going for Frost Mage, then Frozen Shadow Weave is better than Spellfire. As you can see, Fire and Arcane. Frozen Shadow Weave is Frost and Shadow damage. The alternatives that you can use are Engineering for explosives, double down on your AoE damage, Alchemy for better mana regen and transmutes, Enchanting for a bonus 24 spell power, or a Gathering Profession. Holy Paladin, Tailoring and Leatherworking. Drums are good. Tailoring set is the best healer set. I think it's especially good for Paladins because you want to have lots of intellect, and the set offers mostly intellect and stamina, with less so on the stats you don't care as much about. Now, you can go the Alchemist Stone for more mana, pretty obvious, and transmutes. Enchanting for rings, you can go healing power, or a Gathering Profession to make money, since it's still not easy to make money as a healer. Protection Paladin, this one's pretty set. It's Enchanting and Engineering. And why do you go Enchanting and Engineering? Well, Enchanting gives you spell power to rings, and this is a very, very, very good way to get some threat in your gear without sacrificing tankiness. So 24 spell power doesn't seem like a lot, but you generally aren't rocking full caster spell power. So this is a sizable boost to your threat for what would otherwise be an empty slot. And then for Engineering, I'm sure you've heard Paladins have the best AoE threat. It's true, but the problem you have is that it's all tick based. You know, your Consecration ticks. When they hit you, they take damage reflected back. So in order to get them to stand in your AoE and start building threat, having super sapper charges and bigger ones can get them wrangled to you so that you can start building that threat. And it's very useful, since otherwise you don't have a great burst threat move outside of your shield throw, which you don't want to do in combat, by the way. Secondly, you get the Goblin Rocket Launcher. Now, these get replaced eventually, but it's 45 stam for a trinket slot. That's better than anything you're going to find outside of heroic dungeon drops that are kind of rare. So this is a way to have a guaranteed trinket slot with a buttload of stamina. And really, as a protection paladin, you need stamina early. It's what you start off as the lowest HP tank, so it's really beneficial. Rep Paladin. So Rep Paladin is blacksmithing and leatherworking. Blacksmithing is your really mandatory one for the Lionheart Chant Blade. It runs along a series. Each step you upgrade your previous one using mats. So the Lionheart Executioner is what you'll get in 25 bands. The Lionheart Champion is what you'll make it once you start doing Karazhan in Tier 4. And Lionheart Blade can be made beforehand. As far as professions that you can go ahead of time, enchanting for rings, jewel crafting for gems, engineering to get some more AoE. You can even go alchemy if you want to be able to transmute your own materials for Lionheart, or a gathering profession to make money. Holy Priest, tailoring and leatherworking. As the person who can't use any leatherworking, you probably would want to hold off the longest on going leatherworking for drums, but if drums are necessary, then you'll have to go it eventually. Alternatively, alchemy is really your next best option for making money and for keeping your mana up. Shadow Priest, tailoring and leatherworking. Frozen Shadow Weave is great. It's actually better than Tier 5 because Tier 5 adds a bunch of stats that you don't need, like hit and crit, whereas this just has massive amounts of raw shadow damage, which is exactly what you want as a Shadow Priest. Now, Spell Strike, you'll probably replace that quicker, but the Frozen Shadow Weave set, very hard to replace as a Shadow Priest. Your alternatives are Alchemy for more mana, because despite restoring mana, you're still a pretty mana-hungry spec. Enchanting for additional spell power, or Gathering Profession. For Rogue, Engineering and Leatherworking. You're the only melee DPS that doesn't go blacksmithing, because generally the arena weapons and swords are better for you, and it just isn't worthwhile to craft them. It's part of the reason why rogues have a little bit of a slow start to the expansion. As far as why you go engineering, well, it's something that's decent in PvP, which is what you need to do to get gear as a rogue, and it's just added damage. You can use super sapper charges in big ones to up your AoE potential. And as far as the leatherworking, there's some good gear eventually for leatherworking. You might not use it a lot in phase 1, but later phases, definitely there's some BIS leatherworking gear. Elemental Shaman, tailoring leatherworking. And here we have a caster who actually uses the leatherworking set, specifically the Nether Strike set. Nether Strike set gives you spell power and MP5, both stats you like, and the set bonus is just more spell power. Now, the Spell Strike hood and pants you will wear, but as a Elemental Shaman, you really want to wear 2-piece tier 4, so you might cut out the Spell Strike, and I would probably put those as second on your list to attain after the Nether Strike. So you may not have to go tailoring, but if you're late getting your tier 4, then tailoring is there as a catch-up mechanic. Enhancement Shaman. Same deal as the other ones, blacksmithing is the way to go. So we know that the Drake Fist, Dragon Maw, Dragon Strike line will be one-handed, aka you can dual wield them. So you are going to be dumping a lot of money into getting 2 of these bad boys and upgrading them. The chance on hit haste rating proc is immense. I believe it's around like 14% haste, so it's basically half a flurry whenever it procs. So it's amazing. And then leatherworking, there's some leatherworking gear you can wear. As a male wearing class, you can wear leather and mail that you make. And drums are good for you, especially as a melee who's probably going to be focused on buffing other melee. Otherwise, I would say that leatherworking is what you could drop for a gathering profession to fund your Drake Fist, Dragon Maw, Dragon Strike. At least early on, those are going to be your real goals. Resto Shaman, tailoring and leatherworking. Just like all of the other healers. What I said for Resto Druid and Holy Priest and Holy Paladin both apply here. These sets are really good and they're comparable to tier 4. If you are late getting tier 4, these are there for you to take up the slack. If they're not, then you can sell your cooldowns since you know how many other people are going to be needing Primal Mooncloth. Your alternatives, like the other healers, are enchanting for healing power, jewel crafting for better gems, and alchemy for the additional mana restore. Warlock, tailoring and leatherworking. Tailoring for Frozen Shadow, we've said, and leatherworking for drums. You also use the Spell Strike set early on. You may use your tier set instead of the Spell Strike, but at least Frozen Shadow is better than most things you can get until you are getting deep into tier 5. Arms Warrior. Same as the Red Paladin, you're going down the Lionheart line, which is even more mandatory for you since you have to use Sword Spec as an Arms Warrior. It's just better than Axe Spec, even with the expertise. So, in this case, you're going for your BIS weapon through this path up until you get a rare drop of Kel'Thas. So, you're going to be using this for a long time. As far as your alternate professions for leatherworking, you can go stats, or jewel crafting, or engineering, or gathering profession. It might be worthwhile to pick a gathering profession that lets you get Lionheart Blade faster, and then after that, drop it. Fury Warrior, same as the Enhanced Shaman. Exactly the same. You can make some good leather, but mostly you're going to be spending all of your time getting the Drake Fist, Dragon Maw, Dragon Strike line. Once again, the haste rating is just too immense to overlook. And these are basically your BIS weapons throughout the entire game. If you so happen to get Warglaives or late Sunwell weapons, they can be better, but until then, this is it. So get used to seeing these hammers around. Protection Warrior, blacksmithing and engineering. Blacksmithing is not as required, so I would just say engineering and choice. If you go leatherworking for drums, that is a bonus, but blacksmithing armor smiths will craft some good gear. It's mostly BOE, so you don't necessarily have to have it on your raid tune, but if you want to make some money selling crafts, armor smithing is a pretty good one because all of the DPS have to go as a brand of weaponsmithing in order to make their best weapons, so there's going to be a lack of armor smiths. As far as the engineering stuff, it's for AoE threat and for the trinkets. There are some alternative trinkets, but there's not really any alternative to being able to do 900 to 1500 snap threat in an AoE around you. As far as what you would take if you didn't need any of these, then jewel crafting and enchanting for either more stats or for better gems. And that constitutes what profession you should go as part of TBC. Now, once again, this is subject to change if Blizzard decides to once again change how drums work and make them a larger range, or you need less of them, then that can change what professions people go. But this should give you a good idea of what to start on and what you should focus on right after hitting 70. Be sure, if you have any questions, to comment below and I'll try and answer them. Thanks.